Here's how much money you should be saving every single paycheck. Hello and welcome to the Neighborhood Money Podcast. I'm Cavan, that's Drew, and this podcast is all about helping you build a life you deserve. Drew, what's going on, my man? Another week, another podcast. Looking forward to this one to talk all about saving money.
Yeah, busy little week, outside of weather being a little rainy, but, during this week, President Biden talked about forgiving $10,000 in student debt, or maybe $20,000 for Pell Grant, I think is what it was.
Yep, up to 20.
So
yep.
I think that was been pretty hot item of the week. So that's been kind of busy there. But really outside of that, not a whole heck of a lot. Keep my lawn up nice, but that's about it.
I mean, there's a lot of people out there right now that are probably pretty happy about President Biden coming out and saying that they're going to forgive up to $20,000 of loans. Equally, there's probably just as many people that aren't very happy about the situation, but this is not a political podcast, so we won't go into those details. But it was a pretty big week and a pretty big win for people that still carry those student debt.
It was interesting when I look at that. So last podcast we had, I was on the realm of this is going to be pushed to much closer to election time.
I think I was on the same page, man. I thought it was going to be, closer to November.
It actually was much sooner than expected. And then my other thought was there was going to be a lot of these contingencies, and I haven't seen the full plan yet. I went onto the White House website, and I haven't necessarily seen a whole lot of details about it. But as of right now, from what they're showing, it looks like a blanket $10,000 forgiveness for people making under $125,000. But I do see a piece in there that says for some borrowers. So I don't know what that's mean. Maybe that is that little fine detail that I was thinking was going to be pushed through.
Sure.
So when the actual details come out, it's something I would actually like to read into and actually, kind of see.
Yeah, I think that's the only details that have been released. And then they've also thrown in there, it's for a married couple filing jointly, it's up to $250,000 per year you can bring home. But yeah, it is basically just a blanket. If you make under this level of income, you get $10,000 if you have federal student loans, and if you have Pell Grant loans, you can get an additional $10,000 on top of that. So you can get a max of $20,000, 10 for federal, and then 10 for Pell Grant. So it's a pretty big win, I suppose, if you were, like I said, if you're a student loan holder.
It's a really hard thing for me because on an economical, fiscal side of it, I say it's really dumb. And I think it incentivizes people's poor behaviors. And I don't think it's going to help at all with the inflation crisis. There's another side of me that says they're so reckless with our money and our tax dollars. They give so much to foreign countries. Like, if they give that much to foreign countries, why don't you just stop giving that to foreign countries? And if this is what you want to spend that extra spending and printed money on, I'd much rather have it spent on that than these foreign countries. But so it's kind of, kind of a strange little deal. Like, I don't think it incentivizes much good behavior. And then, like, it's just for one short period of time. Like, anybody else going through college isn't really going to benefit much from this. The people that already paid off their loans are kind of feel like they got screwed. And the only thing that they're really doing going forward is saying these student loan payments can't be more than 5% of your discretionary income going forward. So all it does is it might help with the month-to-month payments for these college students, but it does nothing really for the loan. So it's like it'll just be a longer-term loan, and these colleges will probably just increase the price of admission, just like the EVs increase after the tax credit. So
yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, they came out and said that, like you said, the 5% is now the max for the income payment plan. And then they say if you make payments over 20 years, then your debts are forgiven. I mean, for me personally, I don't want to be paying debt for 20 years for a chance for it to be forgiven. So I'm going to stand my ground with what I said last week and what I've said previously with paying off your student loans. But I think I'm right there with you, Drew. I'm torn from it's good for, on one hand, it's good for the economy because there are going to now be people that are going to start families, buy houses, etc.
More money into crypto.
We'll
More
crypto,
liquidity
yes.
into
We'll see
crypto.
how it plays with the inflation crisis that's going on. They're currently saying that it's not going to have any major changes or material impacts to inflation because there's some offsetting stuff in there. Who's to say? If, we'll see how that plays out. But I totally agree in the sense that, what precedence now does this set with people? Are they going to forgive 10,000 every 5-10 years, or how are they going to play it out? Because the loan system itself is still broken. The fact that these people that are 18, 19, 20 can take out so much debt, not really knowing the consequences of it, and the fact that a college degree doesn't have the weight that it used to have from a income, getting a job standpoint. So the whole system's broken. I know that there's obviously people talking about it, so we'll see where that goes. But hey, Drew, that's not what this podcast is about today. I'll bring us back on track a little bit, even though I do like talking about this stuff because it is interesting and it does obviously hit a lot of different people. But today is kind of in the same realm, I suppose you could say. It's saving money. It's obviously not getting your debts forgiven, but it's saving money. And how much should you actually save each and every paycheck? So there's an awesome short article from CNBC by Lily Wolfson, and they write about um, kind of everything that we've talked about so far in this podcast, not today's episode, but in the past. She states that 45% of Americans have less than $1,000 saved. And if you've listened to this podcast for any amount of time, you know that Drew and I both preach about having the 3, 6, even maybe 12-month emergency fund so that you can cover those types of expenses. So knowing that still 45% don't even have $1,000 saved is still a really big concern. So hopefully this podcast can help if you guys are in that boat, or maybe you're in the boat where you need to just beef up some of your savings. Hopefully this stuff helps.
Being a transitional piece from our tangent earlier, right now, when we talked about last podcast about these student loan payments being frozen, and then they got extended now till 12/31/2022. This is now, as we said, as you prep for this, and now this is the podcast talking about maybe where your savings should be going. This is a very good time of, you don't necessarily have to make those payments right now. And now, where is that extra money going to be going? And it shouldn't necessarily be going to the Starbucks every single morning, I don't believe. But I think part of that can be now prepping for the student loan payments that will be beginning at the beginning of 2023, but as well as really starting to look into, where's your money going? Is it going towards your retirement right now? Is it going towards some of your debt? What is your plan for that extra money? And just as the student loans become active, how much money you're going to have left, and where's that money going to actually go?
And I like the fact that you said plan, because you and I talk a lot about the fact that we don't believe in like depriving yourself of things. It's your money, it's your life. You should be able to spend it in a responsible way. But that responsible way means that you need to make a plan. And it doesn't have to be a plan where you count every single cent and you allocate it out, but more so it's a plan of, okay, I'm going to spend certain amount of money on my wants, a certain amount of money on my needs, but then I know that I need to save and I need to invest for an emergency fund, for a larger purchase down the road, and then obviously the big retirement way down the line,
Or even
and
continuing education.
exactly, having that knowledge account that we've talked about in the past. So when you get paid each and every paycheck, how much should you actually be saving? Well, there's a couple of rule of thumbs that Lily describes, one of which, Drew, we've talked about in the past. And there's also a new rule of thumb that I've never heard before, and I actually quite like it. But let's start with that first one. The rule of thumb that we've talked about in the past is the 50, 30, 20. So it means that 50% of your income is going to go towards your needs, your necessities. So think things like living, food or housing, food, transportation, things like that. 30% is going to go towards your wants. And so maybe this could include things like vacation, and like more clothes than you just need in your necessities, right, of living. So maybe you have like maybe a little higher end of clothing, or maybe you have a little bit bigger of a car, things like that. And then 20%, so 50, 30, 20% goes towards your savings and investing for the future.
And, part of that 8 or 50, 30, 20 plan is, I think you're talking about in this article, they talk about a new 80/20. Is that was right? And it's interesting that that got brought up as a newer type of budget, because there was a book I read a couple years ago. It's like the 80/20 principle. And I think it's like called like Pareto's law or something along those lines. And they say pretty much almost any decision that you're making in your life ends up coming down to like 80/20%. So like say you're a fast food restaurant and it's like 80% of your revenue comes from 20% of like your service. And it's, if you're like at a sit down, say it's like, you know, 80% of your business is like on service and 20% is like not. So I don't know. So like everything they say, like this law is 80/20. So like why wouldn't that fit into a budget? And the fact that's now becoming like more of a thing kind of makes sense, because it's like pretty much 80% of the things that you do on a normal basis can kind of be set aside. But then there's a small 20% that is going to have to be set aside for things that you normally wouldn't have done. But now that 20% that you're setting aside for retirement, on the other side, in the long term, could end up making about 80% of your revenue for your retirement side. So like it just flips now to that 80/20 on the, now I'm saving 20% earlier, but then it's going to be 80% of my revenue and income on retirement age.
Yeah, exactly. So to break down a little bit, the 80/20 is basically just combining the 50% of want or needs, necessities, and your 30% of wants. So it really gives you more wiggle room when you're looking at how much you should be spending versus saving of each one of your paycheck. And Drew, I really like the 80/20 too, in addition to what you said, because right now cost of living is going up. Obviously, we know that, everyone knows that rents are getting very high, and so it might be challenging for some people to keep their basic living expenses under 50%. And what I really like about the 80/20 rule is that, okay, well, maybe your living expenses are bumping up to 60% of your income because of things like rent and things like that, or utilities are increasing. Well, then you can decrease the wants and you can still stay within the 80%. And the real key here, and what this episode is all about, is that you're still saving the 20%. So between the two rule of thumb, they are both saying 20% is the magic number to save each and every paycheck. And that includes saving as well as investing. But Drew, I think we should break that down a little bit, because to me, when I hear if you're saving and investing 20% of your income, that may or may not be enough. What are your thoughts on that?
Saving and investing 20% might not be
Exactly.
enough.
So like I always think like 15% of your income should go towards retirement. That means you're only saving 5. So it's kind of hard to balance what that looks like.
That is a little bit different, harder, or a little bit harder to balance. But I think when you hear this 80/20 or 50/30/20 rule, is, as we said in the past, it's a rule of thumb. It's not necessarily set in stone. So we don't want necessarily this budget to be so restricted that you're not going to stay on it. So if you end up keeping your wants and needs and that's what gives you joy in life, then you can have that at your 80%. But if it's something that you want to look at going into the future and that's what you value, and then that 20%, all it is a rule of thumb. Like that's going to be around your investing in your savings and you can decide what that is. But there's no reason that can't creep into your wants. There's no reason that can't creep into your needs. And the way you end up living can alter that budget completely. So if you really enjoy living at a really nice apartment or really nice house, then you're not going to have as much wants and you're going to have to stick closer to that, say 20% for savings and investing, with the knowledge of saying, all right, I'm not going to have as much at retirement, but the way I live is I'm comfortable with this and I have it planned out so I can kind of live this way the rest of my life. So I think that's like the biggest thing I take out of it is I don't necessarily know if I can say it's not enough or it's going to be harder that way. All I can say is when you're looking at these budgets, you have to first decide what it is you want in your current situation and what is you want at your end goal and like retirement. And if your retirement goal is much more strengthened into like your beliefs, then you're probably going to dip into that 20% and try going up to 25% or maybe a little bit more. And you don't really care as much about your needs and your wants.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, to put it how I would approach it is I would make sure that the 20% goes towards retirement, but first I would make sure that my emergency fund's beefed up. So maybe it looks more like 15% towards actual saving for your emergency fund and 5% towards retirement. And then maybe you get that emergency fund and you don't have any big things to save for, and so all of a sudden now you're flipping the retirement to almost all the 20% or 15%. And that kind of stuff can ebb and flow throughout your working career. And I think that's one way to look at it, because if you're in your young 20s, you're going to have way less responsibilities. So you probably can beef up that retirement saving to 15, 20, maybe 25 if you're crazy. And then when you get into maybe you're getting married and having children, and maybe you back off a little bit and you say, okay, well, you know what? I've got other things I want to save for. So maybe I back off and say, I'm going to do like a 10% retirement because I know that I'm still getting a match or whatever it might be, but I still want to fund like a college savings plan. I want to beef up my emergency fund more, or I want to save for a down payment on a new house because we're growing out of your place. And so that stuff can ebb and flow, and then you can pick that back up, maybe towards your late 30s, 40s. And so I think that generally, as long as you stay within that 20%, keeping your retirement, still investing into retirement, I don't think I would say dip below 10%, but it's all obviously dependent on your situation, and trying to ebb and flow as life comes at you, I think is a perfectly okay way to approach
Yeah,
it.
and I'm glad in that conversation there is you brought up the employer match. So this 20% that's left for retirement and savings, you can also, if you had a employer sponsored retirement plan on like a normal W-2 job, maybe they are matching 4 or 5%. So even though out of your discretionary spending or like that, like what your take home is, you're putting 20% towards your savings and your retirement. You also have an extra 5% that's kind of really not that you're seeing, but it's still going in. So that 20% is actually going up to about 25 ish. And you can be saying, like, out of the 100% of this net pay I'm getting, I'm actually really putting in, I'm actually able to utilize almost like 105% out of this paycheck. So that's something to keep in mind too. And that's something that I think I would add into the equation. And something we've also said on other podcasts too is like, don't be afraid to necessarily ask for that raise or look for other jobs, because if you're having a problem with that 10%, I mean, it's just a percentage. So if you're somebody that needs it more in the dollar sense and you need that dollar amount to go up, but you can't because of where you're at, like, be competitive, try looking out for other wages. Like, we're in a free market, and I think that the free market is there to be competitive and for people to like, if you have skills and you have like the work ethic, you could definitely be able to get more income. So that percentage of that 20% with a new job with a higher salary could make all the difference. So that 20% actually makes sense on the dollar amount from a higher income.
Yeah, I totally agree. But I think all in all, Drew, 20% of your income saving, whether that's saving or it's investing towards retirement, I think is a really good place for people to shoot for. And maybe if you guys are a little bit crazy, you could beef that up, maybe even a little more up to the 25%. But all in all, I think generally speaking, whether it's a 50-30-20 you're using or the 80-20, shooting for that 20% to me is a really good goal.
Super, super good goal. Really at the end of the day, it's what you're going to end up being left with. And 20% is way better than 0%. And 20%, depending on whatever the take home is going to be, is like, you could almost say is like a rule of thumb of the way you're living now. As long as you get your debts out of the way and you continue to put in that 20%, you can be living pretty much the same way in retirement without as much stress. And I think that is something to consider.
Drew, I think we should figure out like a theme song for this retweet of the week segment, because the music I have has like a little birdie sound to it, which is kind of cool, but it would be way cooler if we could figure out some way of like just like I don't even know like what kind of music would be cool, like a rock or maybe like a upbeat thing that someone sing like retweet of the week in like a high pitched tone. I don't know.
Or maybe
I'm just spitballing here, but I think that'd be pretty cool to lead into this.
Maybe I could just be on a green screen in a Speedo and I'm just like jiving my body and just singing retweet of the week over and over again. And that could be that could be a good one.
That might be where we lose.
I think that could get people over to YouTube.
They may come over one time to see like, what the hell is this guy?
But hear me out. We put it on a green screen. We don't put anything on our green screen. So then people think it's so dumb and so stupid that it goes viral because people are putting other random stuff on our green screen.
If you guys like that idea, let us know, because we can make it happen. I will
have to find a Speedo, or I can roll up maybe my boxers.
Well, that would be something, wouldn't it?
Speaking of boxers, I don't know if there's any other men out there listening to this podcast, but does any other guy out there like wear underwear to the point where like there's just holes and like
Drew, I think every guy
in the crotch so much, and it's like every time you wear them and you look at them, you're like, I can get like one more wear out of these, and then next thing you know, it's like those underwear were from like 10 years ago, but you're like, you can't throw them away even though they have holes in them.
I think between boxers and socks, every single guy does that. I know in my drawer right now, I've got both that just have holes in them that I just won't throw away because, like you said, I got one more wear left in them, and that one wear goes to like 2 years.
I put my underwear on yesterday, and sorry if this is TMI for people listening, but I put my underwear on yesterday. Didn't realize I had holes in it. Went to the bathroom, and I was like, wow, there are a lot of holes in my underwear. And instead of throwing them away at the end of the night, I just put them back into the laundry. So like I'll probably end up wearing again next week.
And the next time you'll be like, wow, these underwear have a lot of holes in them.
Yeah, I just don't know. And then like I still have t-shirts from high school and I still wear them. I don't know why I like hoard that stuff. Like I should just throw away those underwear, but
it is what it is, Drew. I think that's just a guy thing, to be quite honest. We just
has to be
wear the same stuff every single day for eternity.
For eternity.
That's just what it is.
Until it's just like a thong, and then we can't wear that.
Or you can. It's 2022. Anyways, you got a retweet of the week this week, man?
I did a few of them. I'm trying to think if I want to do a finance-based one. There was a ring of people with a bunch of blindfolds on, and they were trying to catch a duck. So it was all these people blindfolded. So it was like Marco Polo, but with a duck in this ring. And they're all trying to chase it and find it. And this duck's just like going all around them. And the caption on it was central banks trying to find a neutral rate. And I just think it's like so funny. It's like even like the Fed with that central bank trying to figure out how to
Yeah.
get inflation under control. They're just
Yep.
throwing darts at the wall. Like they're
Yeah.
throwing spaghetti at the wall, hopefully it sticks. And
Yep.
uh
Yep.
and I think that's just like the truth. So it's like the blind leading the blind right now. Whether it's something that like they do know what's going on and they're just acting dumb about it, or they just literally have no idea. But the fact of the matter is, like, whatever they end up saying, it like brings me back to that meme or that retweet that you talked about like showing Q1, Q2, three,
Yeah.
four, and then like by the end of the year, it's like the world is going to implode.
It's true though. I mean, let's be honest. They don't know. They have general idea, like theoretical ideas of how you're supposed to adjust interest rates, but it's all timing, right? Like they sent interest rates or they rose interest rates way too late here, so that's obviously why inflation part of the reason why inflation blew up the way it is. And so yeah, it's like they're just running around with or blindfolds on trying to find this interest rate or quote unquote duck that they're never going to actually
It's
catch.
a
So
Yeah, and it's like it's such a strange environment. Like I would hate to be a central bank right now because
yeah.
there's nothing that I've seen or like read that there's been a time like this where this time of like an economic recession or like panic has happened like prematurely and like so fast. And I'm talking about like March of 2020 during like the pandemic stuff that they started central banks started pulling all these levers. Like we need to stimulate the economy, so it means we're printing money. It means we're
Yep.
lowering rates. Um, and then all of a sudden, like inflation starts creeping in. But like businesses are still shut down because it's a lockdown. So like our GDP continues to go down because we're not producing much, but they're still
Yep.
throwing money out there. And like people keep buying and buying and buying, and then you start having a supply chain has issues because of uh certain regulations, and it's just like on top
And boats getting caught in canals.
and both getting got.
Don't forget about that.
Yeah,
What was it? What canal was that? The Panama
or
Canal or
the
something, where a
Suez, I
boat was
think.
stuck for yeah, stuck for a couple of days and like cost like billions of
Yeah,
dollars or whatever
so
it
you're a
was.
central bank that normally works on the premise of depending on how the economy is going, we can increase rates slowly or decrease rates. And like
Yep.
if we raise them, it's going to tighten up wallets and they're not going to spend as much, and it's going to get the supply and demand under control. But now it was like we're throwing all this money, but people still are not sure where the future is going. So they're being kind of tight with their money, but interest rates are low. And then now they're increasing, and then the prices of things are going astronomical. And then there's a shortage on all this stuff. So like I would hate like off the tangent, but like long story short, I would not want to be a central bank because there's like been no time where everything that they traditionally did has like already
Yep.
been done, and they're trying to find a way to reverse it during this down spiral.
Yeah, without putting in the economy, tanking the economy into a recession, right? Because that is like one of their main things is keep unemployment low and then keep the economy growing.
Yeah,
And so their levers are interest
that's
rates.
like their only lever. Like really,
So yeah, obviously there's like quantitative easing and tightening, but at the same time, it's like interest rates are the big
but
one.
they've like already tried doing that during the same time. It's like
Yeah,
every
it's
every
wild.
lever has been pulled before the actual, like I say prematurely because like before the actual like so-called recession that we're in right now has been.
Right,
So like this is
right.
the time when they'd normally be I'm going to try this lever, going to try this one, but they've all already been pulled. Like every level
Yeah.
lever's been
Well,
pulled.
they can definitely drop rates if we go into a recession, but there's not much room to drop. I forget now what the 30-year and the 10-year interest rate is, but
I think it's over. I think it's
they
like
could still drop them a little bit.
I think it's like 5.5 or something like that.
The 30-year,
I believe. I could be wrong. Don't
yeah.
quote me
So
on it.
they've got room to drop, but not much, not
But then
much at
what
all.
do? You drop the rates, and then your inflation's out of control again, which is already out of control.
Exactly,
So,
exactly.
like for them
Yeah.
dropping interest rates, what they normally would do, like they normally don't have an inflation crisis when they do that.
And this is just another reason why Bitcoin is the answer. I will go on the record and say that
Mm-hmm.
because you don't have to deal with any of this stuff in a Bitcoin currency focused economy, which would be awesome. But Drew, I've got a retweet here from my one of my favorite accounts, Greg. If you've listened to a previous podcast, I talked about Greg. He's basically the internet's biggest troll, and I absolutely just love him. And he trolls everything. And so, going on par with the student loan forgiveness, President Biden came out and tweeted uh, the Biden administration student loan debt plan image, and it kind of walks through basically the stuff we've already talked about. And Greg responded to that saying, Mr. President, do you plan on forgiving other loans like my crypto loans? And I was just rolling because, like we said, people are pissed about it. People are happy about it. And he's just like throwing a joke, throwing shade out there of, hey, like if you're forgetting these
Mm-hmm.
loans, can you also forget some of the other loans that I've took the responsibility of taking on?
Speaking of him being a troll, I think I also had another tweet from him saying like, uh, my mortgage loans now identify as student loans. Can they be forgiven for
Yeah,
$10,000?
exactly.
Yeah,
And he also came out and was like, anyone know where I can find a $10,000 student loan?
yeah, real quick.
Yeah.
So all that stuff, I that Greg like that. I didn't know about him until the AMC short squeeze. Uh,
Yeah.
or sorry, not the AMC short squeeze, the GameStop,
The
GME.
GameStop.
Uh, and he started coming out. That's when I first started seeing him, and he was like a huge type of
Yeah.
troll. And then like you start seeing some like congressional hearings like referencing his tweets, and it's like, is this really where we've got this guy that's being a complete troll, and people are trying to take him serious in like
Yeah.
congressional hearings? So that's where I first started hearing
He's
about
one
him.
of my
But I still love to
he's
follow him.
one of my favorite accounts. I love it because I feel like right now in the world that we live in, it's so divided that like you can't like joke about other people or like can't troll other people without it like being like whatever.
Yeah,
And I feel like he just trolls every single person on the internet that's
yeah.
like is anybody, and it's just absolutely fantastic because it like you should be able to do that. Like obviously to an extent, like
Well, it's like he's not.
you can't say
It's like
certain
he's not
things, but
taking
like
like
you
a
should be able
certain
to joke.
side. It's kind of like a common sense deal. It's like these people that come out and are be completely hypocritical. He just
Yeah,
kind of sticks with his own realm, and then he just sees
yeah,
something and then
exactly.
just goes off it, which is just great.
Absolutely love it. So if you guys are still on Twitter, which I know not a lot of people use Twitter much anymore, but if you're on Twitter, look him up. I don't even his actual handle is Greg16676935420, which is fantastic. But yeah, look him up. He's pretty funny.
Yeah, he has like a little bowl cut or something, I think, for his picture.
All right, Drew, anything going on over in the Nori neighborhood this week?
Trying to think. So last weekend, this is like nothing like super fun or anything, but I decided to pressure wash my front sidewalk. So
God, you're just becoming the biggest dad, aren't you? Just the biggest suburban dad.
I'm getting there. I really am. And I'm afraid that the New Balances are not far behind. Like I'm not there
Oh,
yet. I think I want to be
whew. We might have to end this
I,
podcast if you start wearing those New
I'm not
Balances.
planning on it, but like gosh, the route I'm going is scary. But anyways, I pressure wash.
You have a garden, you mow, you line up the edges, you pressure wash, you install your own AC
Yeah,
unit.
I mowed today, and normally we kind of just use like the mower and just have like the mulcher part of it. So like we have
Yeah.
We use the same one that you have, like that green Easy Go.
Oh, the
Ego,
Ego?
yeah.
Nice.
But I've been wanting to do the bag for a while, but I've been forgetting every other time.
Yeah.
But I did the bag today, and I have to say, like, I don't know why I have not been doing it. Like, I've always looked at bagged lawnmowers. I'm like, oh, like, what a waste of time. How dumb. But I did it today. I'm like, I'm going to be a bag mower guy.
No, no, man. You can't be a big mower.
I take up all those clippings. The, it just looks like the lawn looks clean, cleaner than I thought. And like, I think if I were to mow my lawn like 2 times a week or something, that's one thing because you're only taking off maybe a third
Yeah.
of an inch.
Gotcha. Yep.
But when
Yep.
I'm doing it on like a weekly basis, it
Yeah.
grows too much. So like anything I'd have to go over it, one day at like really small clippings and then go over it the next day just to like get it down to
Yeah.
where I want to be. So like having the bag works really, really good.
True. True. That's when you should bag if you let your lawn grow too long
Yeah.
because otherwise then you'll suffocate part of your lawn. So I'm with you there, but I think that you should get out and mow twice a week and go do the mulch because that gets those nutrients back into the
I know.
soil and it feeds the
But there's
grass.
still some clippings that go back in there, and I still like the mulching stuff, so I'll do that every once in a while. But
Yeah.
the bag looked nice. The front looked pretty clean, edged up the lines after a nice
There you
pressure
go.
wash sidewalk.
Yeah.
So,
Nice.
but yeah, outside of just random like yard work stuff,
Just dad stuff.
yeah, I mean, really,
Just out here being a
really
dad.
not a whole heck of a lot.
I hear that you're in the running for dad of the year. Rumors have it, but I'm not quite sure.
Well, I'm running for one of those mugs that say number one dad. So, but I don't think I could actually use if I ever got that mug. Uh, as much of a dad move as that would be, I don't think I could ever drink out of it because I have one mug I got a couple years ago from Voyager Brewing out of Grand Marais, Minnesota,
Yeah.
and like everything was kind of shut down, and we just drove up the North Shore to go there. And I just like wanted to help small business, so I was like, "Oh, like Jordan, if you want a T-shirt or something, like I'm gonna get one of these mugs." I didn't realize the mug was like $30. So like out of principle, like
You only drink out
that's
of
my mug,
it.
and I only drink out of that
Nice.
mug. So like if people came over and like ever tried grabbing that coffee mug, I would have to like knock them over the head with the number one dad cup, and then take my Voyager Brewing one back because like that one is going to be like probably in my casket with me when I'm 101 years old.
You're gonna get cremated, and that's where your ashes are gonna rest for all eternity
Yeah,
in a little plot on the ground in this coffee
yeah.
mug.
It's just like out of principle. I'm like, there's no way a coffee mug should be $30, and I actually bought it. So like, I'm getting my money's worth out of this. You better believe it.
I don't know what I can't believe more. The fact that you use the same coffee mug every single day or the fact that you paid $30 for a coffee mug.
I hey
Like both of those
hey,
blow
I
my
can't
mind.
believe it either. But like, it's now out of principle. Like, I got
Yeah.
my money's worth out of it. It's $30. Really doesn't matter that much, but like, it does.
You can get like a full case, like full set of coffee mugs for that money.
Yeah, I'm.
But hey, you supported local. That's all that
Yeah.
matters. You supported
Yeah,
local.
and speaking of things that are overpriced, I should probably mention that I will be switching deodorants. I do Dove.
because people care about that.
Yeah, they should. I am using Dove Clinical because my pits sweat bad, and that deodorant stick, it gets like I swear it gets smaller, and there's only like a little tube of like deodorant, but they make it look like way bigger, like it's the whole thing, but it's not. And they're now charging $10 for a stick of that.
Dang. For one
For
stick?
one stick that
Dang.
has gotten smaller, and it's smaller than any other thing because like it's just like a little, like I said, it's like a little tube in there. But it works really good because my pits don't sweat off it. But this is another principle thing where that should not be $10, and I will now refuse to buy that. So I'm gonna have to switch to different deodorant. So if anybody has a good deodorant that's reasonably priced, I would like to know.
I'm a big fan of the Speed Stick, the classic Speed Stick. That's what I've been using. And
Is it
actually,
is
it really
it
depends. Whatever's on
is it
sale, to be honest with you.
antiperspirant?
It is. I have to, because I also sweat quite a bit.
Okay.
And so I have to do the antiperspirant. So the Speed Stick has been wonderful. I do the what is that brand? Old
Old
something.
Spice?
Yeah, Old
You
Spice. It
didn't know what
depends
Old
though.
Spice was? That's like the most known brand out there.
No, I couldn't remember. Brain fart, man. Come on, give me a break here. It is 10 o'clock. I get up at 4. So I'm running on fumes right now, my man. But it all depends on what's on sale. So I always get the 2 to 3 pack.
Yeah.
You shut your mouth over there. You shut your face.
Yeah. I will shut it. But like, yeah, so maybe Speed Stick's the way to go. Like, I think that's gonna be part of like Costco trip has been paper products and like household stuff like paper towels, toilet papers, if it's like
Yeah.
ketchups, just like stuff that you just need in the house. Deodorant will probably be my new one because like I will not I refuse to spend $10 on Dove Clinical after this last one I just bought.
And that's final, folks.
Final.
That's final.
Yeah. So I don't know if you guys want to hear any more about my antiperspirant and my sweaty pits, but really, like this episode today, we went off of a CNBC article, kind of about using budget and like saving money. And really, I don't know if you even got a point out of this episode, but I think you did. But really, using either 50-30-20 or the 80-20 is like one way of starting to think about how you want to save your money. If you are somebody with a student loan, it is now extended, like those payments are froze until the end of the year. But this is the time to really start planning and thinking about what you want to do with these payments going forward, or if they will be paid off with this potential $10,000 relief, if it's actually going to happen with that, with the application. But at the end of the day, what we really wanted to highlight is, where is your extra money going? Do you have extra money? Do you have a plan for this money? And we hope that this episode can get your mind thinking about actually looking at your money and actually putting that plan into place before the beginning of the year, because that can be your New Year's resolution, but with a plan a couple months ahead, and you'll be much happier for it in the upcoming year. So, we want to thank you again for listening. If you made it this far, we hope you like our tangents. If you don't, that's fine too. But if you have some deodorant recommendations, I'm all ears. And with all that said, we will see you guys next week in the neighborhood.